This isn't for me. This isn't for Kate. This is for the women that are listening and are considering wanting to be a part of something like this. They've been looking and wondering if it's the right investment for their businesses. And I feel like for myself, being 10 years in as an entrepreneur, it's really important for me to not just necessarily hear like something's great, but actually hear how it created impact for someone else. And I feel like we're in that world of like referral and suggestion. And I think it's really important that we go into being able to answer tactical things for you guys. So I want to celebrate Kate because she invested in her business through being in an Elite Accelerator Mastermind in a lot of other ways too. She really plugged in. Like she said last year, she had never worked as hard as she did in her life, but like she's kind of on the other side of that in a lot of ways and is getting to reap a lot of that benefit of her hard work and also trusting me means the world. And so I just asked her to come on and share her heart with you. Um, and so here we go. I'm going to let Kate introduce herself and then we'll dive in.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Kate Prieto, and I own Familia Mechanical. We're a heating and air conditioning company that serves the OKC Metro. I met you, Danielle. Gosh, I think someone invited me into LCG, and I was kind of just lurking, And I at the time my business was still pretty young, and I was thinking about, I don't know what I don't know. I need someone to come help me. And I had seen through one of your lives or one of your posts that I could schedule a free consultation call, a 15-minute discovery call. And I did. And I was kind of like, I was flabbergasted at the time because I came to you and I was ready to like hire you on the spot. I had seen everything I thought I needed to see. And I was like, this is where I'm at in my business. What do you think I should do? And you actually told me that I shouldn't hire you right in that moment. You said I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing for the age of my business, for what I was supposed to be working on at that stage, and that I had it, and that I should come back and talk to you when I get past the point that I was at the time, and I was wanting to scale and grow and to revisit it in 6 months. And that's actually exactly what we did. I went and I kept working on what I was needing to do and getting the foundations. Uh, and 6 months later, I met with you and I was like, so I'm thinking I'm ready. And I told you where I was at in your business, and you were like, that's exactly what I can help with. And I joined the mastermind, and gosh.
It's been awesome. Well, and I love that too because you still were like, should I join the one-to-one coaching or tell me about this mastermind because you had seen that I had been putting it out and you're trying to decide whether or not, one-to-one coaching is helpful or if you should be in the mastermind. And I said, well, the way I've designed Elite Accelerator Mastermind is that you get the one-to-one support. But what was really neat is when we talked about like you coming on and sharing with the ladies about your experience, you were talking about how the community played a role. So why don't you share a little bit about what it was like to have a community of women, especially because you're in trades. You are in a different, every woman in the mastermind was so different. We had a product based business, we had an events based business, and social media based business. We had a licensed therapist, and then we also had a tradeswoman. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about like how did that community of women supporting your business when you're in kind of more of a male dominated space? Like, how did they show up for you? How did it feel? And like, what made you say yes to that versus just the one to one?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. I think when I came to you asking about the mastermind is I'm an HVAC company, and I don't see a lot of women tradesmen in the women's entrepreneur space. It's is this going to be the right fit for me as my industry? And gosh, I wish I could just tell myself to let that worry go because it wasn't even a concern. When I had this community. I loved it for so many reasons. Partly as I came from a military background. I'm not originally from Oklahoma. So when I came back to Oklahoma after I separated the military, I didn't have really any friends here. I knew one girl, a good friend of mine, and I didn't have any family. I didn't really have any community. And then when I started my entrepreneurship journey, we all know that gets lonely sometimes. And there's not a lot of people you can talk to about the tough parts, and not a lot of people who get it. So when I joined Elite Accelerator Mastermind, all of these girls got it, hands down. And then when I was worried about whether or not they were going to be able to support me because I was an HVAC company, that turns out to be a needless worry because although they weren't exactly in the trades, they had had experience in similar industries in one way or another, or we all have kind of the same hurdles that we're jumping through. It might look a little bit different based on the industry, but if we're struggling with something like, how do I market this service to make sure I'm getting the point across? We've all had that struggle, and everyone had good, valuable advice to give me on that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I felt like was really helpful too, because you're such a quick ideator and well, really more action taker, but it was good to have the ideation support, being able to say, "Hey guys, what do you think about this?" And then being challenged, like you told me your favorite was the way that we were able to challenge you by asking questions, because oftentimes I think we don't give ourselves enough credit that we often know the right decision, but being entrepreneurs and kind of in this solopreneur mindset, or like you said, a lot of the women you were surrounded by didn't necessarily understand your industry, but we would challenge you because we got to know you better and be able to help you come to the conclusion that what you wanted was actually right. Like that was the actual answer you wanted. Or you were like, because you guys proposed the questions this way, I actually made the decision to put that on hold for now. I feel like you
Yeah.
had a lot of that type of support in the group that I think helped you make big decisions. And you were making big decisions in your business. These are not, her company is not this small business. This is supports multiple employees. And, whenever you came into the mastermind, we had two employees. And now, I mean, let's talk a little bit about kind of where, I know we're going to jump ahead a little bit, but like kind of where some of those measurable growth that you saw through these big decisions you're making. I mean, you were making decisions on who to hire, where to put job postings, what to pay people, when to buy and purchase vehicles to expand your fleet. You were asking questions as far as like contracts when we went into detail of like how to do subcontracting. Like we went into some conversations that were big for your business. Or, do I homeschool my kids? Because that was a goal that I had while I'm trying to run a business. Do I rent this office? Like you weren't making decisions like, do I use Squarespace or WordPress? Those are big decisions. But I'm saying like you had some really like skin in the game where employees and families were counting on you type of decisions that you brought to the table. So what does that look like for you over the last year?
Well, when you're operating a business that has so many people counting on you, so many real people, real families, real livelihoods that count on you to show up and do what you need to do, it's a lot of pressure. And it's something I don't take lightly. So there was a lot of times when I feel this pressure. I need to make the right decision. I need to do right by my family. I need to do right by my business, my husband, my children, my employees, and their families. So just the support that you guys gave me in those moments when I'm kind of doubting myself, or I'm not sure where to turn, or I just feel like I'm in it deep. But a lot of it was taking it a day at a time. Besides just all the tactical support, asking you guys to look over this document or this web page or whatever it was, this graphic. It was also kind of the accountability of when I started beating myself up, or I started feeling discouraged, or I started feeling, completely overwhelmed with all of it. You guys kind of reminded me who I am and how much I've accomplished. I could cry right now. But we got through it day by day. Just you guys supporting me emotionally when I needed it. That there's a lot of times when I needed the emotional support more than I needed the tactical support.
Hmm.
And then by the end of the year, I had hired on two more technicians. And this year we're gearing up to hire two to four more. So I feel much more comfortable as an employer now than I did a year ago. I went through a lot of learning curves, but just I couldn't have done it without having these girls like at my back being like, "Hey, take a breath for a second. Like, have you eaten lunch today?" or hey, it's 9:30 at night. Why are you messaging the group chat? Go to bed because you need it. You have a big day tomorrow. And sometimes that's what accountability looks like. It's not always about like what did you or did you not get done. Some of it's you promised you were going to take this week a little bit slower and you were going to relish in the wins that you had last week. Have you tried that? Have you done that today? Have you eaten? Have you taken a breath? Have you gone outside for a walk? You said that to me one day.
I made you take a
Uh,
day off.
yeah, you were like, you need to chill out and take a day off and go for a walk right now. It is 4:30 and it's beautiful outside. Get out there. And that's exactly what I needed to hear in that moment.
Yeah, I feel like that was actually a big key factor. There were times I made a joke yesterday. We were at the Connection Day event. And we were talking about it was like four or five of us sitting at the table, and we are talking about how people let me forget their birthdays, which I know is my job to remember their birthdays. But I was giving people a hard time about how Corey had like a fake birthday this past week or whatever, and I thought that I had missed her birthday, but it really wasn't her birthday. So filling you in case you missed it, Facebook changed her birthday, and it wasn't actually her birthday. Anyways, long story short, I was like, sometimes I feel like I can be so challenging in the way that I ask questions as a strategist and as a coach because I want to help not just give you the answers, but help you come to the conclusions. And oftentimes I already know what you value. We've already set the vision. And so it's so easy as business owners to get squirreled and the shiny thing happen, or like there's this next thing being presented in front of you. And when you're a newer business owner, even though you were several years into the company, you had gone full time 6 months prior really to diving deep into this mastermind and taking the business to the next level. And so for you, I was a little bit concerned on like everyone's throwing this advice out. How do I help her feel empowered in the decisions that she's making? And so sometimes I would be kind of like almost hard on her. And then I'd be like, man, like I'd pull back and be like, was I too rough? And then it comes to find out Kate was like, that's what I needed. Like
Yeah.
I'm not just the, like, you got this girl coach, although I do that. I definitely hype my girls up and pull out the best in them. But I also am like, here, you're investing in me to be honest with you and help get you to where you want to go. And so there were times where I was like, does it make sense? And sometimes I would challenge her, like even with the last office rental, I challenged her to be like, okay, how many competitors are around you? And she's like, okay, I'm going to Google it and pull it up. Okay. And like we would dive deep into tactical and strategic reasons for why we were making a decision that involved such a higher rate of investment of time and money and risk. So I felt like it was really neat to one, like you to receive it in the way that was coming from a place of love, but also that you appreciated that I wasn't just your hype girl coach. I was like challenging you to make logical decisions that aligned with your values. So we got to celebrate some really big goals with you throughout, and even today, we got to celebrate like just the continuous like of your consistency and the company that you guys built. Because I think when people hear HVAC, or like in our case, we own a plumbing company, they just think, oh, it's just another plumber. Oh, it's just another HVAC company. But like hearing the heart of like why you serve and how you lead with education and the values of your company, it just shines. And so it's no shock to me that the time that you've spent investing in your business and into your family and into the relationships around you have grown your business. But like there have been some big wins. So do you want to share a little bit of like some of your transformation that you've seen over the last year?
Yeah, gosh, I feel like we could spend a day on it by itself. Some of the bigger ones is between 2023 and 2024, we doubled our revenue. And then I was just looking into it this morning too, when I was kind of just curious about the numbers. And I realized from January of last year to January of this year, we've tripled our revenue for the month of January, which is incredible. There's things that are maybe a little less number based. Like
Mm-hmm.
we got certified as a service disabled veteran owned small business. We got certified as a woman owned small business with the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, and we got certified as diverse owned. We started working our way into the government contracting industry. We had picked up some large commercial clients, which at the time was something that was felt like it was on the horizon, but it was right around the corner. We just didn't know it. Um, gosh, there's a lot of small things. We revamped my whole website. We created new lead funnels. We like completely tore apart the different ways people can contact me and put it back in a way that made more sense. Just the amount of clients that I brought on, the amount of exposure, the Facebook ads that I was running, and the amount of times that I could just go to you guys and be like, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm going to get the word out there, and you guys being like, that's great, but have you considered this? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, obviously I have to do that now because that's phenomenal. I love that. And so all of these little things that we did, I couldn't even list them all, but they all came together into like this really big result. So the really big results are, you know, doubling my revenue and doubling the amount of employees I have and gearing myself to triple it the next year. It's phenomenal, but a lot of it came from the tiny little moments that happened throughout that 6 month period.
Well, and one of the things that you said that I feel like is why I like the proximity. We talked about this in Corey's interview previously. It was like the proximity is power. She was talking about how she was inspired by how like you would come in and you would drop all of your to-dos, like or all the things that you accomplish, like your wins. And then instead of feeling like, man, I'm not like living up to that, she was like, if she can do that, so can I. And so it was like the power, how like, you hear the whole like what is it? Oh goodness, it's the quote like when all ships rise. I can't remember what the quote is, but it's talking about like when you're around people, everything is lifting at the same time. Someone put it in the chat because I know there's a really cool way of saying it. And I always like just just destroy those. But essentially, we're all rising together, and it's really been neat to see. And you said something when we talked before your live about how things that you felt like were 10 years away. Like, what does that feel like now?
There was a lot of milestones where when I started the mastermind in January, because we started in January that year, I had a list of goals that I wanted to achieve. Some of them were quick, immediate goals. Some of them were really big, like multiple year out goals. And within 30 days, 60 days, 90% of my goals had been achieved. So I realized that the goals that I thought were big goals that were going to be that far out were actually much closer than I thought. And so it completely changed it all. There's other wins like last year. I wanted to buy a house. I was thinking about it. I was like, I really want to start getting myself set up so that we can buy our home soon because we were still renting from me moving back here after separating the military. And then come November, we close on 5.5 acres with this beautiful house, and it's covered in woods, and it reminds me just like my grandparents' property back in New York, and it's filled a part of my soul, like a cavity I've had since I left my hometown to join the military. And so that was a huge win. Like that's a lifetime milestone that happened last year that I wasn't thinking was going to happen. And then we just got awarded this week, Small Hispanic Business of the Year from the Oklahoma City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which absolutely blindsided me. We worked really hard, but a lot of times you keep your head down and you're just going through the trenches and you're working as hard as you can, and like you forget to look up. And I didn't know that they were watching me like they were,
Hmm.
that they were keeping tabs on our progress and our wins like they were. And then to come up for air and they give us an award like that, it's humbling. It's humbling.
Yeah, and so deserved. And like again, we know your heart, and especially for the Hispanic community, like that's from the very beginning. That was a huge like drive for you, was like making sure that people felt educated and empowered in the decisions they were making, and that they were working with a company that was safe, that understood what was best for them, and weren't taking advantage of some of the language barriers and understandings that were existing in our local area. So that was really cool to see. It was funny because this year it seemed like everyone was very Oklahoma based, but in our past cohort, we had people from all different states. And so we had Colorado, we had Texas, we had Ohio. And so it was neat too that we were all pretty in close proximity within probably an hour or so of each other. But then
Yeah.
really we still like we're all busy women business owners. So we escaped to the retreat. Talk a little bit about like how did that deepen the effectiveness of the mastermind for you?
We had spent so much time together on video chats, but also just in the group chats. We were talking on a daily basis, several times a week at the bare minimum. We knew the ins and outs of what was happening in each other's lives, not just business, but like, that week maybe I wasn't struggling necessarily with business stuff. Maybe my personal life, motherhood, being a homeschooling mom, maybe those things were coming up for me. So I felt like I knew all these women on like a much deeper level, but I hadn't spent a ton of time with them in person. And then we go on the retreat for the weekend, and it kind of just brought it all together. And I loved that we did it towards the end, but not at the end, because we got to sit around and celebrate all that we had accomplished and talk about it and talk about how we still have goals that we're going to accomplish. And then when we ended the retreat and we went back to our lives and we keep track for a few more weeks and just like see all the things that we had talked about on the trip come to fruition. That was it was really cool. And I still talk to my elite girls on almost a weekly basis. We haven't really lost track at all, and the relationships that I've built with them are still holding just as strong. And I think that it gave me accountability partners that are lasting outside the just the being members of the mastermind, but like the friendships and the partnerships. And these girls are still kind of my biggest cheerleaders when it comes to social media. They're still passing me referrals. I'm still passing them back as quick as I can. And all of that kind of, it was like the retreat was like a big old sleepover for all of our gal pals that we had been talking to constantly for 6 months.
Yeah, and we got to sit around and work together. We got to ideate together. It was just really awesome. And that's something that I feel like it was nice to hear from even going into year 3 now, like that these are the things that still stood true. And I continue to shape the mastermind better and better with each of y'all's feedback. And they poured into me on how to continue to even make it better, which is amazing. So I'm just super proud of you. You've literally accomplished so much. You're homeschooling your kids, you're homesteading now. We love getting to see that. We love getting to see how you and Johnny work together as a team. You know, they're a husband-wife team. And we had actually Krista and Luke who were in the mastermind. Well, Krista, but her and her husband worked together. And Corey and her husband work together in the capacity of the power washing business. And then myself and my husband have a plumbing company. And so Billy didn't work with her husband, but her goal was much bigger that involved her husband. And it was just neat to see even just how, like, having a sounding board that isn't your partner could play a big role too. Is like, when you're working with your spouse, they're like, it kind of gets to the point where it's hard to have the real conversations or have someone logically say, Kate, I really think you're wrong in this place. Or like those were the hard conversations where sometimes I feel like, let's be real, we're not always wrong. We're pretty on point. I'm just kidding. You don't have to watch this. But the reality is, right, it's important to have that. And it was good for the spouses too, for you to have someone on the outside that wasn't um, in your home every single day with you, trying to navigate business. So the whole goal in this was one, to highlight the work that you did and the power empowerment of the community. But we all knew that going live like this could have just been a written testimonial. We wanted you to speak to the women who have been watching from the outside. Elite Accelerator Mastermind is an investment of time. Around at minimum, we ask 3.5 hours of your time a month. We ask for you to show up Mondays and Thursdays in the chat, which people are like, man, I don't know if I can do that. I watched you guys show up for each other almost on a daily basis with the right kind of boundaries around it. So that was all great. But like, what outside of like me telling you the mastermind's awesome? Yes, the investment's worth it. You definitely said your ROI was there. Those are all really important things, but like, why should they consider this like and not get in their own way?
Gosh, when I was going through, so I'm a numbers person. I like to make my list. I make well thought out decisions usually. Uh, but when I was going through the mastermind, the investment was something I had never invested in myself on that level before, not like that. Um, and so it was scary, and it's like stepping into an unknown. It felt like gambling. I'm gonna make this commitment, and it's gonna cost this time and this energy and this money. Is it gonna be worth it? I can tell you that I saw my ROI in less than 30 days. And then the ROI is still coming in. I have no doubts about it. I wish I could have gone back in time and given myself a sense of peace about making that decision, because before I made the commitment, because I didn't know yet what was on the other side. It had me, I was staying up at night. I was like, I'm not quite sure if I should do this. This is a tough decision. This is a big decision. Am I ready for it? Is my business ready for it? And the answer was yes, absolutely. I wish I could just go back in time and tell myself to stop questioning it so much, because it's absolutely going to be worth it, and to just relax. And when you step into it and like you get rolling and all these things are happening and it's going to be more than you thought it was going to be, and it's got long lasting results, not just the 6 month period that you're committing to.
I love that so much. And I think it's normal for us to be nervous. I think if we're not nervous when we go to make an investment, that likely means there's not enough emotional or like skin in the game, whatever it is that motivates you. Not money's not always what motivates people. So there's not, enough of that in the game that I feel like you're not going to show up in the same way. And I feel that it's something that allows you to collapse that time and be intentional, but also you know that the sister next to you is as invested as you are. And here's the deal too, is like you heard what Kate said at the beginning. I didn't just let anybody into the mastermind. I don't just let anyone attend retreats. I don't let just anyone become a one-to-one coach. Like for me as a small business owner, to turn away a client that's coming to me ready to hire for, hey, here's $4,500. I'd love to be your client. Sign me up tomorrow. And I send her away. It's because I'm really, really intentional with making sure it's the right fit. So if you are nervous whether or not it's the right fit for you, that's what the application process is for me to review and assess and say, is this the right fit for you? And if it's not, trust that I'm going to tell you no. Because the reality is that the mastermind is only as successful as the women that are in it. Yes, why not? Why would I offer it if I could just offer one-to-one coaching? And to be honest with you guys, it's over 50% in savings to work in the mastermind versus working with me one-to-one. So if I could sell you in one-to-one coaching versus bringing you into a mastermind, wouldn't that make more sense? The reality was I could have taken Kate on as a one-to-one, but I suggested the mastermind, even though it was $7,000 less than her working with me one-to-one for 6 months, because I knew that would be what was best for her. So those who maybe don't know me, this is why I had them come on and share. Like, it's not just about the sale. It's not just about filling the program. It's about helping women get real results. Because why would I pour my heart into something that is extremely hard to put out there, marketing it and advertising it, doing all the things if I didn't believe in it. And getting to see the real results of these women and having them take the time to actually realize in writing and on video, like what this has impacted them, it just means the world to me. And so Kate was my final interview for EAM from this first cohort as of right now. And I'm so grateful for you trusting me and for you trusting the other women to pour into you. And I'm excited. And like Corey had said earlier today, she's like, I am a EAMer for life, which made me laugh because people say that about Reach Retreat. They're like, Reach Retreater for life. And so now I'm like, okay, EAMer is like a word now, I guess. But any final words that you want to give to the girls or the people watching this before we sign off?
I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. The honesty, the turning me away the first time I came ready to buy, to wait till it was at a point where it made the most sense for me. That felt really selfless. And it meant a lot to me. And really it was in that moment that I really committed, because there's not a lot of people in this day and age in these industries who are willing to lose a sale for the sake of what's better for the company. I guess so. People try to sell us stuff all day long, with no regard of whether or not it's what's best for us, really. And so I appreciate you so much for having the heart to be able to tell me that. And I also appreciate all the tough love that you've given me. I've told you before, tough love is kind of my love language. It's what I came here for. I needed someone to call me out when I needed to be called out, someone to hold me accountable when I needed to be held accountable, and someone to not beat around the bush and just, say what I need to hear in that moment. And I love that you were able to show up for me in that way.
Well,
So
thanks
thank
so
you.
much. Thanks so much. And I saw Krista supported us and said, a rising tide lifts all boats, which I think it's ships, but either way, I'm like, yes, thank you for saving me. But that's the truth. So that's exactly what it looks like to be a EM sister is coming in nervous, knowing it's a big investment, but being willing to bet on yourself, being willing to put the time in to building those relationships. I say you get out of things what you put into them. And so it's really intentional for you to go all in, to experience it. Even that means the vulnerability. It's a safe space. We made it that way. We sign on the dotted line that it's a safe space and creating that for each other. And if it feels aligned for you, we'd love to consider you being in the mastermind. So thanks for taking the time, Kate. I appreciate you. Continue to keep on keeping on for you and your family and all of us that are lucky enough to get to work with your company. And I guess we'll talk soon.
Thanks.